are not only being indoctrinated with gender ideology, but they are now being denied an education if they do not go along with it, including toddlers who accidentally say something which apparently the teacher thinks is transphobic. That's right, a toddler has been kicked out of nursery, expelled for being transphobic. You cannot make this up. It makes my blood absolutely boil that we are throwing the welfare of tiny little kids under the bus in the name of this bullshit gender ideology madness. Let's take a look. And this toddler was not the only person, okay? This is not one isolated case. The facts show us that this is actually happening to a lot of children. So we've had a toddler suspended after being accused of being either transphobic or homophobic. Hence the lack of clarity there, because what we've got is we've not got a specific story from one school. We've got a bunch of data from the Department of Education showing how many kids have been expelled, at what age, and what for. Okay, we're seeing a heck of a lot more children being expelled from schools, and that is, I think, in part because children are less behaved than before. But I also think, especially given we can see that there are a lot of them being kicked out supposedly for transphobia or homophobia, that actually a lot of it is kids being kicked out for genuinely ridiculous reasons. So the data from the Department for Education shows that the child, who is either 3 or 4, was suspended from a state school in the 2022 to 2023 academic year for, quote, abuse against sexual orientation and gender identity. Okay, we do not know which school it is. We do not know further details, but this compilation of data that tells us how many kids, what age, etc., were excluded from schools tells us that this is the case. But if we look at all of the stats, okay, we learn that this is not just a one-off, this one kid. The reason why this kid is the top of the article is because they are so young, but there are plenty of other kids who are also very young, who are also being excluded for similar matters, okay? So the stats show that 94 pupils at state primary schools, still very young children if they are in primary school, were suspended or permanently excluded for transphobia or homophobia in 2022 to 2023. Okay, you can perhaps understand at secondary school, if you've got, let's say, a 16-year-old, 17-year-old being, consistently, horribly homophobic to somebody and not learning their lessons after the teachers have tried to intervene a bunch of times, you can maybe understand them perhaps being suspended or excluded for that when they are at that age. But anyone who is in primary school who accidentally says something, who doesn't, little kids, they don't understand what homosexuality is. When this news broke, I was at GB News last night, and we got told this story before it was going to hit the front pages, and we got to comment on it first, and oh my god, I said I don't know whether to laugh or cry, because these little kids, what I said is, you can have a little toddler who might say, "Ew, mummy and daddy, I just saw 2 boys kissing, that's weird," right? And you wouldn't get angry at the kid, would you? You just explain to them, oh, there are some people on this planet, some boys that like boys, and there are some girls that like girls. Okay, you'd explain it to them. You wouldn't get angry with them, and you definitely would not exclude them from the nursery that they're in for it, right? And if it's transphobia, right? Well, I mean, that's just genuinely bonkers, right? Because you have then got, let's say a little kid calls someone a boy who clearly looks like a boy, but apparently they identify as a girl, right? Excluding a toddler for that? I mean, a toddler, they're not going to understand homosexuality, let alone transgenderism. I'm genuinely baffled that they would do this to a poor little toddler. I'd be very interested to see if the parent involved actually comes forward and gives us some more details of what has gone on here. But 94 students from primary schools excluded for this kind of stuff. right? You should be teaching kids, with compassion. If they say something, if they say something mean, or they don't understand, as I say, like they see two boys kissing or whatever, and they make a hoo-ha about it, okay? You just explain it to them. Be nice to them. You don't kick them out of school and deny them a bloody education for it, right? Anyways, it included the data. These 94 pupils included 10 pupils from year 1 and 3 from year 2, where the maximum age is 7. Kids under 7 being kicked out of school for transphobic or homophobic comments. It's just beyond belief. And of course, as we have seen, one of these students is someone who is of nursery age, hence the title in this big article. Let's have a look at what J.K. Rowling had to say about this. This is totalitarian insanity. If you think small children should be punished for being able to recognise sex, you are a dangerous zealot who should be nowhere near kids or in any position of authority over them. I mean, quite right, very blunt and to the point, but absolutely. I mean, we cannot just stand back and, be too kind and just allow this stuff to happen to the little kids, in this country that just want a future, they want an education. Let's have a look at what Helen Joyce had to say from the campaign Sex Matters. She says, in this Telegraph article on the story, every once in a while the extremes of gender ideology throw up a story that seems too crazy to believe, and a toddler being suspended from nursery for so-called transphobia or homophobia is one such example. Worse still, this is not an isolated case. Apparently 13, 4 and 5-year-olds were suspended or permanently excluded from school for the same reason. Teachers and school leaders involved in this insanity should be ashamed of themselves for projecting adult concepts and beliefs onto such young children. It's unforgivable for children's vital early education to be so traumatically disrupted by school leaders who prioritise activist demands over their charges' well-being. I mean, very, very well said from Helen there. This is beyond belief. Unforgivable, to use her words. It is completely unforgivable what they're doing to little kids in the name of this bullshit gender ideology. Let's have a look at what Toby Young from the Free Speech Union had to say about this. He said, it beggars belief that schools are suspending children as young as 5 for breaching their transphobia policy. I would have thought that if your ideology is so rigid, it justifies you punishing toddlers for not complying with it. That's a powerful argument for discarding it in favour of something less dogmatic. So there we go. This is an absolutely insane story, and as we've seen, they're not isolated to one child. 94 primary school age children have been suspended for either transphobia or for homophobia. Something needs to change here. Was it the case that after this story came out that the Department for Education put their hands up and said, we need to do something about this, can't believe this is happening in UK schools, we're going to do something about this? Oh, no. When they were asked for comment on this story, they basically agreed with what had happened. They said, the well-being of, teachers and staff is really important, and we need to make sure that we've got, a policy in place to make sure that teachers and staff are treated properly. And I'm like, what the heck? How much of an idiot do you have to be? How indoctrinated do you have to be to recognise that a literal toddler being denied an education because of supposedly transphobic or homophobic behaviour is insanity? Clearly, at the Department for Education, they are so insane that they think this is normal. Anyway, that's another day in this crazy country. I'm Chloe Dobbs. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to Reasoned if you've not already.